A dead body is a strange thing. A few hours ago, it was someone. Now the body remains, but the person does not. The face, the hands, the weight are still there. Almost everything that proved a person existed, except the person. Death leaves the evidence and removes the explanation. At some point in our deep past, humans began responding to this in an extraordinary way by burying our dead. We carried the dead, placed them, covered them, sometimes returned to them, and sometimes left objects with those who could no longer use them. The grave never changed what happened to the body, which still decayed. So perhaps the purpose of the burial was never to change death, but to change the world of the living. Death creates a strange contradiction. Someone can be completely present and completely absent at once. The body can be touched and recognized, yet the person who animated it cannot be found. We have inherited thousands of years of words for this: body, soul, spirit, corpse, remains. But the physical event beneath those categories is still unsettling. Other animals respond to death too, but the stranger act is what humans eventually began doing with that knowledge. A body was no longer just the place where death occurred, it became something to place and arrange. The living intervened, turning death from an event into a task. There is no single grave we can confidently identify as the first moment burial. The deeper into the Paleolithic, or Stone Age, we look, the harder intention is to prove. Bodies can end up in pits for natural reasons, and archaeology must distinguish an act from an accident tens of thousands of years later. But at sites such as Kafse, School, and Tinchamet Cave, the pattern suggests humans in the Levant were intentionally burying some of their dead deep in the Middle Paleolithic. Neanderthal burials have also forced archaeologists to reconsider who was capable of this behavior. Perhaps the most important question isn't which group of humans started burying their dead first, but rather the cost of the act itself. Someone died, and the living spent time and energy on a body that could give nothing back. The grave is labor performed for someone beyond usefulness. Sometimes objects appear with the dead: pigment, shells, animal remains, tools, ornaments. At Kafse, a young individual was buried with deer antlers. It's tempting to read this as immediate evidence of religion, food for a journey, tools for another world. But archaeology cannot simply read an afterlife from an object beside a skeleton. The same act can carry many meanings. Perhaps the safer question isn't what people believed happened after death, but why the relationship between people and objects continued when one of those people was dead. A tool has a user, an ornament a wearer, a gift a receiver. Death breaks these relationships, yet burial sometimes reconstructs them. The dead had lost agency, but they had not necessarily lost significance. Burial removes a body from ordinary life, but it also gives the dead a location within the world. Before burial, death is wherever the body lies. After burial, there is a place, a pit, a cave, a mound, a stone, that can be remembered, returned to, marked, or protected. This gives absence coordinates. Across later human societies, graves repeatedly became entangled with memory, ancestry, and social order. Though we shouldn't project later ancestor cults onto the Paleolithic. Still, the grave allows absence to become spatial. We put the body away, then create the means to find it again. The grave hides and marks, separates and connects. It says the person is gone, but also here. A body decomposes no matter what. Biology requires no funeral. Yet humans rarely let death remain only biological. Bodies are buried, burned, exposed, wrapped, painted, divided, moved, or revisited, and bones may be gathered long after flesh has disappeared. There is no single human answer to death. That may indeed be the point. We didn't discover one correct way to treat the dead. We created many. The corpse became material around which societies could organize ideas about personhood, belonging, status, and loss. The grave doesn't prove belief in a soul or an afterlife, but deliberate treatment of the dead shows that death could become socially elaborated. Perhaps this is one of our oldest habits. When reality gives us something we cannot solve, we organize our behavior around it. A ritual doesn't need to answer a question in words. Sometimes the action is the answer. Carry the body, place it here, turn it this way, add the red earth, cover it, return later. The dead remain dead, but the incomprehensible has acquired an understandable sequence. Death has been given a grammar. From a technical point of view, we now understand more about death than any Paleolithic human could have. Cardiac arrest, brain death, the chemistry of decomposition. Yet knowledge hasn't removed the grave. We still carry the dead, wash and dress them, burn or bury them, and put their names on stone. We bring flowers to people who cannot see their colors, speak beside graves with people who cannot answer, and keep watches, clothes, and photographs because they once occupied the same world as someone who no longer does. This may seem irrational if burial is judged only by what it accomplishes for the dead, but the dead were perhaps never the only participants. Death creates an absence with no natural shape. A person occupied thousands of places, a chair, a path, a voice in a room, the expectations of other people. Then suddenly, they occupy none of them. The grave takes this enormous, shapeless absence and gives it a place in the world. Here. Perhaps that is why the grave has survived so many gods, kingdoms, and explanations of death. It doesn't tell us where the person went. It tells the living where to put the loss. The body disappears, but meaning is harder to bury. Perhaps that is why we made the grave, not because we understood death, but because we could not stop trying to give its absence a form.